The world we're living in right now, honestly, it's moving so fast it barely gives us room to breathe. Everything has to be instant, quick, and, visible. Even success is measured in such a narrow way, like how fast can we climb, how big is the win, and how cool does it look when we show it off. But in the middle of this heartless, fast-forward era, there's this one person who chose to slow down. Someone who hasn't really changed his ways in decades, and yet he's still one of the top 10 richest people in the world according to Forbes. This is Warren Buffett, a serious anomaly that just doesn't follow the logic of our time. So how does Buffett keep his wealth while the modern world just keeps getting faster and more draining? Today, I want to talk a little bit about his life, a man who's slow, simple, but successfully timeless. That man is Warren Buffett. Warren Edward Buffett was born on August 30th, 1930, in Omaha, Nebraska. He grew up in a middle-class family that pretty much shaped him into the man he is today. Most people know how much Warren looked up to his dad, Howard Buffett. He was an honest stockbroker and a U.S. congressman with these really strong principles. His father was basically Warren's moral compass from day one. It was from him that Warren learned about the inner scorecard, judging yourself by your own standards, not by other people's praise. But his relationship with his mother, Layla Stahl Buffett, is something the media rarely talks about, even though it was way more complex. Layla was brilliant and amazing at math, a trait Warren probably inherited, which explains why he can crunch numbers in his head so easily. But in his biography, The Snowball, it's revealed that Layla had a difficult temper. She'd often have these verbal outbursts toward her kids, including Warren. The biography explains that this indirectly shaped Warren into someone who avoids conflict at all costs, or what psychologists call being conflict averse. He'd escape the tension at home by losing himself in the logical world of numbers and business. In that world, everything was predictable. He could control it. And you could see this even when he was just a kid. While other kids were busy playing, young Warren was experimenting with strategies to make risk-free profits. For example, at age 6, he bought a 6-pack of Coca-Cola for 25 cents and sold each bottle for 5 cents. That's a 20% profit right there. By his teens, Warren was already a business pro. He once bought a used pinball machine for $25 and put it in a barber shop. The business blew up, and soon he had this mini pinball empire all over town. But he didn't keep it forever. He eventually sold it for a profit. And besides the pinball thing, teen Warren was also a total genius as a newspaper delivery boy. Back then, he didn't just have one paper route, he had several. By the time he was only 14, he'd already saved up $1,200. If you convert that to today's value, it's about $18,000. And get this, he used that money to buy a 40-acre farm in Nebraska at 14. His teen years were honestly legendary for business, but then he had to face a pretty tough reality. He got rejected by Harvard Business School. But in his biographies, Warren actually says he's grateful for that failure. Why? Because it led him to Columbia University, where he studied under Benjamin Graham, the author of The Intelligent Investor. Benjamin was the one who taught Warren about the margin of safety. He coined that term to explain to his students, including Warren, that investing isn't about guessing which stock price will go up. It's about a strategy, buying assets for less than they're actually worth. Basically, Warren learned he had to buy businesses that were real, understandable, and made sense to hold on to for the long run. Because investing isn't gambling, it's a rational decision that takes patience and discipline. Using that concept, young Warren started using a radical strategy called cigar butt investing. It's an analogy for a company that's basically bankrupt and thrown away by investors, but still has one free puff of profit left in it. That strategy worked early on, but he soon realized it had major flaws in terms of scale, time, and stress. That's when he met Charlie Munger, his future business partner. Charlie convinced Warren that sticking to cigar butts was exhausting because they were constantly trying to rescue dying companies. Charlie shifted Warren's mindset toward quality investing, which means buying an amazing company at a fair price. That's a huge reason why Warren switched to buying big, solid companies. They weren't just discarded cigar butts anymore. They were premium cigars you could enjoy for decades. Another reason he moved toward bigger companies was because in the 1960s, he almost ran into big trouble with Berkshire Hathaway, which, funnily enough, started as a textile company he bought just because the stock was cheap. So Warren almost got played by the management at Berkshire. They gave him a lowball offer to buy back his shares, and when Warren realized they were trying to cheat him, he was furious. In a total heat of the moment move, he decided to buy the entire company just so he could fire that manager. But after the dust settled, Warren realized that his emotional decision was kind of a mistake. The textile business back then was a dying industry. But honestly, this is where it gets brilliant. Instead of just dumping money into a failing factory, he used Berkshire as his investment vehicle. He took the cash flow from the textiles and bought insurance companies. Why? Because he wanted the float, that insurance premium money that sits around before claims are paid. Under Warren's touch, Berkshire Hathaway quickly grew into this massive conglomerate, holding major shares in iconic brands like Coca-Cola, American Express, Apple, and global energy giants. For decades, Berkshire's value grew at a speed that's basically impossible for any other investor to match. As a result, Warren Buffett has been a permanent fixture on the Forbes richest list. We're talking tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars. Like a number so big, most of us can't even wrap our heads around it. But what makes Warren stand out isn't the size of his bank account. It's the fact that he hasn't changed his lifestyle at all since getting rich. There's no flashy luxury, no flex, because for him, time, not stuff, is the most precious thing in life. While most billionaires use their homes as a status symbol, Warren still lives in the same house he bought back in 1958 in Omaha, Nebraska. He bought it for just $31,500. In a world that's obsessed with renovations and massive expansions just to look rich, Warren sees a home for what it actually is, a place to live, not a trophy. No 5-meter fences, no scary armed guards, and definitely no lineup of sports cars in the garage. Choosing to stay in the same spot for over 60 decades isn't just about being frugal, it's his way of staying grounded. He didn't just refuse a mansion, he chose to stay connected to reality and avoid that social isolation that usually hits the super wealthy. And you can see this sharp contrast in his daily routine too. Warren is the kind of guy who could literally buy out an entire fast food chain, but instead, he's still there, waiting in the McDonald's drive-thru every single morning. He spends no more than $3.17 on his breakfast. Seriously. And if the stock market is down, he'll actually downgrade his order to just $2.61. This lifestyle shows that for someone like Warren Buffett, money has a logical value, not an emotional one. Warren isn't out here chasing dopamine hits from instant luxury or first-class treatment. His clothes often look pretty basic, maybe even a little outdated. He doesn't need a diamond-encrusted watch or a $1,000 suit to prove his power in the boardroom. To him, intellect is the highest authority, and Warren doesn't need expensive fabric to wrap his brilliance in. I mean, in today's culture, wealth is so often used as a costume or a mask to build an identity. People feel this need to look rich just to be recognized as successful. But Warren, he radically flips that logic. He sees wealth as capital that needs to grow, not as a tool for social validation. He draws a sharp line between price and value. Through his actions, Warren shows that luxury goods are often sold at a high price but have zero value for his productivity. So he chooses to put his money into productive assets like stocks or companies instead of depreciating stuff like fancy cars or designer clothes. In Warren's hands, money is potential energy that he saves for massive change through philanthropy, not for flexing on social media. Along with Bill Gates, they started the Giving Pledge, a commitment for billionaires to donate the majority of their wealth to charity. Warren himself has promised that 99% of his fortune will go back to society through foundations after he's gone. As for his kids, he'll leave them just enough money so they feel like they can do anything, but not so much that they feel like they don't have to do anything. In an era where trading algorithms can make moves in milliseconds and investment trends change as fast as a social media post, Warren Buffett is like this long-lasting anomaly surviving wave after wave of hype. Throughout his life, Warren has consciously rejected speed. To him, speed is the enemy of precision. He believes the modern financial world is just obsessed with the short term, like what's happening in the next 5 minutes. But Warren, he thinks way ahead. He's only interested in things that will still be around 50 years from now. In Warren's eyes, the chaos of the stock market isn't a guide. It's just noise, distractions designed to tempt people who lack self-discipline. He's basically the ultimate enemy of speculation. He's always refused to jump into businesses he doesn't understand, no matter how many people were getting rich overnight. I mean, look at the dot-com boom in the late 90s, or the whole crypto craze today. Warren just didn't join in. And it's not because he's out of the loop, it's actually from his intellectual honesty. He knows the limits of his circle of competence and straight up refuses to be FOMO. For him, FOMO, the fear of missing out, is the most destructive emotion in wealth management. He'd much rather look old school or out of date than lose his capital just by following an irrational crowd. Warren actually idolizes the baseball legend Ted Williams and uses his philosophy, the science of hitting. It's the idea that a great hitter doesn't swing at every single ball. They wait for the one that lands right in their sweet zone. That's exactly how Warren invests. He can wait for years without making a single big move. While other investors feel like they have to do something just to look productive, Warren feels he's at his most productive when he's just sitting still, doing nothing, or just reading. He loves reading. Some reports say he reads up to 500 pages of books or annual reports every single day. That's his version of being busy, and it's enough to keep him from reacting to the daily emotional roller coaster of the stock market. For Warren, the stock market is just a tool to serve his investments, not something that dictates his every move. And honestly, that's exactly what sets him apart from everyone else. While the rest of the world is rushing to scroll through news headlines, Warren actually takes a breath to read hundreds of pages of annual reports and analyze them. It's pretty clear that he isn't looking for surface-level info. He's looking for the bones of a business, its strengths, its flaws, and its culture. He rejects speed because he knows that deep understanding takes time to sink in. Warren believes that good decisions aren't born from pressure, they come from facts that have matured in your mind. For him, time doesn't just move forward, it compounds. Warren is like the living proof of the magic of compound interest. He never chased a risky 100% return in a month because he knows that instant wealth is usually shaky. Instead, he chose consistent, moderate growth over decades. He uses this snowball method. The idea is that you only need a little bit of capital, and if you give it a long enough hill, meaning a lot of time, that snowball is going to get huge. And that's exactly what happened to him. Believe it or not, most of Warren Buffett's wealth was actually built after he turned 50. He doesn't subscribe to the get-rich-quick culture that's literally everywhere today. His rejection of speed isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's proof that anything truly valuable, whether it's wealth, reputation, or relationships, needs time to grow into something solid and lasting. Even though Warren Buffett has always been seen as this wise, simple guy, his journey hasn't exactly been free from sharp criticism. There are some controversies that actually shook his image as this ethical investor. The first bit of drama is actually about his private life. Behind that famous, modest house in Omaha, Warren was living a life that most people would find, well, pretty unusual. According to mainstream media, after his wife, Susan Buffett, moved to San Francisco in 1977 to chase her own career, they never actually got divorced. Instead, for decades, Warren lived with Astrid Manx, a restaurant hostess who was actually introduced to him by Susan herself. Susan personally asked Astrid to take care of Warren while she was gone. And just like that, for years, they lived in this weird relationship triangle. But honestly, they all seemed fine with it, acting like it was totally normal. I mean, they even signed their Christmas cards with all three names: Warren, Susie, and Astrid. It just goes to show that even someone as wise as Buffett has a side that's completely off the traditional track. But it's not just his love life. Warren also stirred up drama among the ultra-rich by calling for the US government to raise taxes on wealthy people, what we know as the Buffett rule. He famously argued that it's unfair his secretary pays a higher tax rate than he does. However, critics are calling him out on a major contradiction. See, his company, Berkshire Hathaway, is known for being incredibly aggressive when it comes to avoiding taxes. They've been in long-running disputes with the IRS and use these super complex corporate structures to delay billions of dollars in tax payments. For a lot of people, Warren's public stance on tax fairness starts to feel a little hypocritical, especially when you look at his company's aggressive accounting practices. The soft, gentle image that Warren Buffett shows the world, it actually kind of clashes with how he handles some of his biggest investments. Like, take his partnership with the private equity firm 3G Capital during the Kraft Heinz acquisition. Warren was right there, involved in this brutal cost-cutting process that cost thousands of people their jobs, all just to boost profit margins. It's crazy because Warren always positions himself as this investor who loves long-term business and ethical company culture. But then he doesn't hesitate to back massive efficiency moves, even if he knows it'll destroy the lives of so many working-class people just to satisfy some shareholders' balance sheets. And along with that controversy, a lot of people are starting to criticize his economic moat strategy. On the surface, it sounds like a smart way to protect assets, right? But if you dig a little deeper, Warren's concept actually goes against the whole spirit of free market competition. See, in classic capitalism, like Adam Smith's theory, if a company makes a huge profit, competitors are supposed to show up and take a piece of that cake. That competition is what lowers prices and forces companies to keep innovating. But Warren, he's literally looking for businesses that are immune to those laws. He wants to build a moat so deep that even if a competitor has all the money in the world, they still can't get in, or they'll just get crushed trying. The problem is, if a company can't be challenged anymore, they don't have to lower prices or improve quality. And honestly, that's pretty much the definition of a monopoly. Plus, Warren is known for loving what he calls toll bridge businesses. It's a strategy he uses at Berkshire Hathaway. Imagine a city split by a river with only one bridge to cross. The owner of that bridge doesn't need to innovate anymore. He can just sit back, relax, and collect a fee from everyone who passes by. Through Berkshire Hathaway, Warren now owns BNSF Railway, one of the biggest rail networks in the US, along with various energy companies. So basically, if someone wants to ship goods or just get electricity in certain parts of the US, they have to pay Warren. There's no other choice. This is what people call rent-seeking behavior. Simply put, the wealth isn't coming from new innovations anymore. It's coming from owning assets that people literally can't live without. Critics today argue that Warren's famous economic moat strategy is actually just a way to choke out startups. By owning these massive, established giants, Warren uses his scale to keep costs so low that smaller, more innovative players can never compete on price. Take his investments in Coca-Cola or Apple. He's leveraging brand loyalty so deep that people keep buying, even if there are healthier or cheaper options out there. For Warren, that psychological moat in a consumer's head is the best asset he could ever own. But here's the controversial part. His portfolio is heavily built on products that, well, aren't great for public health. There's this ironic truth about his wealth. It's not just built on numbers, it's built on human biology. His main holdings include giants like Coca-Cola, Kraft Heinz, and See's Candies. These all have one thing in common: sugar. Lots of it, and it's addictive. To Warren, this is the perfect investment because that psychological moat keeps people coming back regardless of the economy or their health. But critics see it as exploiting the public. While the world fights obesity and diabetes, Warren is profiting from every sip of soda. And whenever he's questioned about the health impact, he usually just brushes it off with a joke or downplays the medical facts. I mean, at the annual shareholders meeting, you'll literally see him drinking a Coke or eating See's Candies right there on stage. His most famous argument is literally, "I consume a quarter of my daily calories from Coca-Cola and I feel great." To a lot of people, that's just a dangerous oversimplification. He uses the fact that he's still healthy in his 90s as proof that the product is safe, completely ignoring millions of cases of sugar-related health issues in less fortunate parts of the world. Health experts see this as nothing more than a rhetorical distraction to avoid corporate responsibility. And this is where the contradiction hits its peak. When we look at Warren's role as the biggest donor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I mean, that foundation spends billions to improve global health and fight chronic diseases in developing countries. But the irony? The wealth Warren donates to fix global health was built on companies whose products systematically damage health in those very same places. It's this weird moral inconsistency. On one hand, he's funding the cure, but on the other, he's injecting capital in management to expand the reach of the cause. Warren once made a statement that's just as controversial, saying he'd rather own a business that makes people smile, like candy and soda, than a business that makes people healthy but unhappy, like organic vegetables. He's cleverly pitting short-term happiness against long-term health. For many, this is a total moral blind spot. Warren Buffett, the legendary investor known for his honesty, actually has this ability to just ignore the negative impact of his investments. He chooses to see the world through a profit and loss lens rather than a public medical report. It shows that no matter how simple his life seems, at the end of the day, Warren Buffett is a pure capitalist, someone who puts profitability way above public social responsibility.